NBA playoffs start the second week of April, with the NHL playoffs scheduled to begin immediately after. Whether you're looking to raise the Stanley Cup or lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy, we've got the deal for you. Postseason subscriptions are already a great deal at $219, but with this early bird special, we're slashing it even more to just $177 each, and you get the rest of the regular season for free. Between now and Sunday, April 9th, partner with your favorite NBA or NHL handicapper and get their NHL or NBA best bets all the way through the finals. No coupon is needed. Head to the homepage of your favorite WagerTalk or SportsMemo expert and finish the NBA and NHL postseason with a bang.
Welcome into WagerTalk's Last Call. Happy Saturday. I'm Meghan Payton. We have a great show coming up for you guys. Some of the best handicappers in the business joining us. We have Brandon Siefkin, Andrew McInnis, Adam Trigger, Rob Veno. We are in full MLB swing. NBA playoffs are here. NHL playoffs on the horizon. And the handicappers are here to break it all down. But most importantly, if you're new to Last Call, this show is about you. Time to get involved. Head over to the YouTube live chat. Any questions you have, the reason it's called Last Call is because it is your last chance to get some bets on the table for Saturday's action. So throw out your best bets, get your questions in, and we have the best guys to break it all down. Let's start with Andrew McInnis, who's best in NHL. He's been on a 70% all 5% streak, or for 5% plays in NHL since November of 2021. And we have the playoffs coming up, Andrew, so we got to get talking. How are you first, though, and what do you have going on at Wager Talk?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Good to be here. Look, I'm really excited for the playoffs. You know, the regular season, it was fun, but I feel like it's just kind of dragged on. A lot of teams, they already knew who they're playing, when they're playing, and their positioning. So now that we have all the seedings and all the positioning, I can prepare myself for the playoffs. I will have a 5% series wager going up this afternoon. And I know it's Wager Talk Last Call, but I know I'm kind of the hockey guy. I do have a serious prediction to give out here today on the show. So I'm looking forward to it, Meghan, and can't wait for the playoffs.
Let's go right into one of the first games that we'll see on Monday. Puck drop at 7:10 Eastern. We have the New York Islanders at Carolina Hurricanes. Right now, you can get the Hurricanes minus 166 on the money line, and the total's at 5.5. This seems like a bit of a jump for me. I don't know if we're laying too much juice with Carolina. How are you approaching this one? Our first playoff series that we're breaking down here at Last Call.
I love it. And, you know, look, this is the thing. So for me with NHL playoff betting, and same thing really for NBA as well, I'm a lot more of a series type of guy. So between the series, I'll have small plays on props and, 1%, 2% plays and things like that. Sure, I might mix in a 3 or 4%, but most of my bigger plays are going to be on series wagers themselves. Now, obviously, the Islanders were in a chase for the playoffs. They were just trying to crack that final spot. They didn't know until a few days ago they were going to be in the playoffs. Now, Carolina, besides the Boston Bruins, they have the second best record in the NHL. They are top 5 in goals against. They're top 5 in shots allowed per game. They lead the NHL in points and goals by defensemen, and they are in the top 7 or 8 in goals against average. This is, to me, one of the most well-rounded teams in the National Hockey League, but they don't get the credit they deserve because they simply aren't very flashy. Like, they are not a team you're going to see their players have highlight reel goals. You're not going to see them on ESPN highlights. They're just a very well-rounded, fundamental hockey team, and I feel like it makes them fly under the radar. They won the season series 3-1 against the Islanders. And what I like about this, Meghan, is that they didn't just win every game and by one goal or by lots of goals. They did it in variety. Like I said, winning the season series 3-1. The last game they won was a defensive battle, a goaltending battle where they won that one 2-1. They also won another one by a handful of goals. I just look at this series and think that it's two teams that play very similar types of hockey, but one team is just a step up in class with what they're capable of doing. So instead of laying the big chalk there on Carolina to win the series, what I'm going to do is think that this game will not go any farther than 6 games. You can take Carolina minus 1.5 games in the series at plus 100. So getting that down to really good odds there, and expecting Carolina to get it done. Not to mention having home ice is huge in the playoffs. Carolina last year undefeated on home ice in the playoffs. That home ice advantage is very big for them and their fan base.
And it's not the first time these two have met up in the postseason. The Hurricanes beat the Islanders in 2019 in the second round. Andrew, as we start handicapping for playoffs, you got to be on top of injuries. You've got to be looking at where Vegas is eyeing. But what's just general advice for any of these games as we get into the postseason?
Well, general advice, I would say my number one thing, Megan, is experience. I think that experience is so huge in the NHL compared to any other league, because really the type of hockey you play in the playoffs is not the same type of hockey you're playing, just 6 days ago in the regular season. The physicality is up. The shifts are a lot shorter. There's a lot fewer of chances. The games are a lot lower scoring. The way that the game is called as far as the officials and the refereeing is different. You need to have that experience. So when I'm looking at some of the matchups and some of my best bets for the serious wagers for clients, I'm looking to bet on teams that have a lot of guys that have been out there before. You see a lot of young guys doing very well in the NHL these days, Megan. It's unbelievable. But when they make that jump to the playoffs, can they keep that up at the next level is my biggest question. So I'd say my biggest tip is experience. Make sure you're betting on teams that have actually been there before, because you can see some nerves in some of these guys when it's kind of their first rodeo in the playoffs.
Andrew, let's switch gears here because not only do you break down NHL, you are an expert in UFC. What do you have on for us this weekend? Anything sticking out on the card tonight?
Yeah, I don't love the UFC card, but I just wanted to mention a popular guy, a popular fight here. It's a UFC fight night tonight. It's Max Holloway and Arnold Allen. Allen, of course, 19-1. Max Holloway, he's been around the block, 23-7 record here. Simply put, durability. And I just talked about experience with you in the NHL playoffs. Those are the two factors that I see here for Max Holloway with why he should get the decision. I think this fight goes the distance, which is a prop I'm looking at. Over 4.5 rounds, over 3.5 rounds, if you want to squeeze that into a parlay piece. But when I look at this matchup, I just think that Holloway has fought the better fighters. He's been in this situation a ton of times before. And when he squeaks into those dirty areas and he's able to get himself in tight, he will land some really big shots on Allen. If he can manage to protect himself, stay out of trouble, I think that Max Holloway is in for a victory tonight. So experience plays a huge factor. It was kind of a nice segue there on accident, Megan. We were talking about experience because to me, although we do have Allen with a great, level of a great record and he has fought some good guys, everybody knows Max Holloway's been around the block, and I feel like that really does help him in this instance. So I'll take Max Holloway to get the job done, but I think my favorite play on this one is the over, as I see two very durable fighters.
Max Holloway minus 158 to win. Hey, do you ever bet on method of victory? To me, that's where you can find a little bit of value in UFC. If you want to bet Holloway by points, by knockout, is that something that ever catches your eye?
I do. I really do enjoy method of victory betting. But Megan, one thing I've kind of adjusted is that if I'm releasing method of victory to my clients, I'll also bet, I have to bet the side as well. So I remember like a couple, like last summer, I had a pretty rough card. It was like, I think I went like 1-3, but I was positive units because I had Sean O'Malley to win via points. The guy was already a big underdog. You take him to win, you throw in the points as well. That was 5-1. But it's true because it's just like, sometimes people say correlated parlays, this NFL team is going to win, but it's going to be in low scoring fashion, or NHL team. Same thing, like you said, for the UFC. That if somebody is going to win, they're probably going to have to knock their opponent out. Or if this guy's going to win, it's going to go the distance. So I wouldn't argue by any means Max Holloway to win via points. I could see him kind of just getting in tight, landing his shots, keeping his space, though, and showing his experience out there. So Max Holloway via points. I don't think that, the 150 per se is too chalky in the UFC, Megan. I don't lay that a ton in, like MLB, NHL, but in UFC, I think I'm comfortable with that, though.
Andrew, I'm going back to NHL here. Let's talk a little futures. Does the President's Trophy curse continue with Boston? Nobody with the best regular season record has won in the playoffs. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'm happy you asked that because people talking about the odds right now for the Boston Bruins, and I think I'm really really strong on this. If you like the Boston Bruins to win the Stanley Cup, I strongly recommend looking at the Conn Smythe Trophy, which is similar to MVP, Finals MVP in the NBA. You can get David Pastrnak at plus 700 to win that trophy. And I think that if they win the Stanley Cup, it's very correlated for him to have the playoff of his life and perform for every single round. So, getting that plus 300 ish, depending on where you shop around, boosting that up to a plus 700, I think that's a really good way to go. Can the Boston Bruins make it all the way? They absolutely can. And the biggest reason I think they can is because they've proved all year long that they're not just winning high scoring games, they're winning low scoring games, they're winning tight games, they're winning games in overtime. But I kind of some people are disagreeing with me, some people agree, but this kind of has the last dance feel to it with this team. I'm not saying it's like going to be like a Jordan documentary made about this team, but it sounds like to me that there's something going on with this team. A lot of older players, their captain might not be back with the team next year. It has that feel to it. This could be the last dance for the Boston Bruins, but I strongly recommend anybody that wants the Bruins to win the cup, get down today on David Pastrnak to win the Conn Smythe at plus 700, Megan. That's a pretty big difference from their Stanley Cup odds.
We got a good question in from Ghosted. He says, are the Vegas Golden Knights going to be unders? We talk a lot about defense. They're going to be playing the Winnipeg Jets right now. Total for that one, 5.5 for game one.
I would say that's a fair assessment. I think that it definitely correlates more with Winnipeg's game plan. I think Vegas can definitely play to more of an over style and a fast style of hockey. But I recommend anybody that has any interest even in backing Winnipeg, or even if they respect Winnipeg in any sense, Winnipeg will keep things low scoring. That's kind of what they are. They're a good defensive team. They have a great goaltender. But both teams have great power plays, and that can really affect the total. But I think early on in this series, we will see some unders. And it's funny that my overall outlook on totals in the playoffs actually is I think that we do see series start higher scoring and then open up, or then they go lower scoring as the series progresses. In this one, I could kind of see the opposite. If the lower scoring is frustrating these teams, we're going to see them pushing the defensemen up. It's all about activating the defense. That's what it's like in the NHL now. If you're a good team, you have to have defensemen that can score. And that can be a problem here for both these teams. But overall, I think we do see an under, especially if we can get some sixes as the total. That's definitely the way to go in that series.
Andrew, we appreciate you here Saturday morning breaking down NHL, UFC. You bring out the best bets here, free plays all on Saturday. Andrew, 70% on all, 5% plays in the NHL since November of 2021. You can find him at WagerTalk.com. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
You too.
We will continue with more NHL talk, but we have to go and switch gears to NBA because the playoffs are here. Reminder, I've already seen the chat lighting up with questions about the NBA. Continue that conversation. Start thinking MLB. I even mentioned on Thursday, if you want to talk a little NFL draft, we'll break that down too. We have it all here at Last Call. Let's talk NBA though. Rob Veno here to talk about the playoffs. Veno's been on an MLB hot start, plus 14.1 units of profit, 69.2 win percentage, and we're here to talk NBA. How are you, Rob? And what do you have going on at Wager Talk?
I am good today, Megan. Glad to be here with you guys this morning. Over at Wager Talk right now, 4% NBA best bet total selection for today's playoff action. Also involved in XFL, where it's been good to me this year. Number one over there at Wager Talk. Interesting to hear you talk about the NFL draft. I'll be there in Kansas City for it this year. Probably the eighth one I've been to with my sons. Going to be out there, make the trip out and see how that goes. So a little bit different than when they used to have it in Radio City Music Hall, Megan, but all the same, it's a fun event, and I look forward to that as well.
Rob, I'm going to switch things up real quick. Since we haven't talked about it on Last Call, there's been a lot of discussion this past week with Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud was the betting favorite for the last couple of months, ever since Carolina traded up for the pick. And now Bryce Young seems to be the majority here. We're seeing him at like minus 300 to go first overall. Do you believe that this is what's going to happen, or is there a little bit of smoke screen going on right now?
It's hard to tell, Megan. Generally, when those lines move like that in past drafts, it's been a real move. But I'm trying to remember the one where it swung and then went immediately back. It might have been an NBA draft where that happened. Normally in the NFL, there was a big move towards Baker Mayfield when nobody thought he was going to be number one. All of a sudden, he was number one. The same happened with Kyler Murray. So somebody probably knows which way Carolina's going here to see that type of line move.
Yeah, definitely some leaks when it comes to NFL. All right, we have to switch to NBA. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that. We've got a big one, and this is actually going to be my favorite game to be looking at. This is the LA Clippers at Phoenix Suns. Suns -7. The total's at 226. First game Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. To me, I really think Suns are going to go in the long stretch here. I know that's not a hot take. Phoenix with Kevin Durant hasn't lost yet. Do you like the Clippers at all at any point in this series?
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to talk about a play that I made early in the week here, Megan, on the Clippers. For the series, they were plus 2.5 games, minus $1.25. That number has since increased to minus $1.50. There's been a little bit of action on the Clippers plus 2.5 games. But at first glance, and then after deeper dive, it just seems to me that Phoenix probably gets through, but I don't see this series being any worse than 4-2 Phoenix. I don't think they sweep. I don't think they win 4-1. The matchups just don't dictate that. Certainly, this version of Phoenix is a little bit different than the one that went to the finals against Milwaukee. This version's a little more finesse, a little more scoring oriented, unlike the team a couple of years ago when you had guys like Jay Crowder. It was predicated on defense and Monty Williams' little catchphrase, be a pest on every play. They could score, but they played a lot of defense. I think the matchups kind of work here for the Clippers when you go through them. The physical nature of the LA Clippers could pose a little bit of trouble for Phoenix in a couple of games here. You have plenty of experience with Kawhi, with Russell Westbrook. And say what you want about Russell Westbrook. We know that when the playoffs begin, he's going to go hard after every rebound. He's going to go hard after every loose ball. And that's the type of lineup that they put out there, even at center with Zubats and Plumlee, against a somewhat soft DeAndre Ayton. Just think that there's a lot of advantages to the physicality and defensive nature of the LA Clippers here and the depth. And 1 through 9, these teams do match up pretty well. I think you would have more concerns with Phoenix foul trouble because they're top 4 in the starting lineup, Megan. When you look at Durant, Booker, Paul, and Ayton, they're not as interchangeable as the Clippers are, aside from Kawhi Leonard. Really, when you bring the second unit in, those guys can pick up where the starter left off. So I like the matchups here. I like the fact that the Clippers have been pretty steady home and away. They haven't been the greatest home team. They've been good, but they've been a better than good road team. And for the Clippers, they're home dominant. Haven't been so good on the road. Season series here can't be applied because obviously this is the first time the Clippers will see Phoenix with Durant in a lineup, and this particular lineup. And at certain points in the season during their 4-game series, you had George in and out of the lineup, Kawhi in and out of the lineup. So this is a whole different deal. I took the season series and threw it out. I think in summary to the whole thing here, the Clippers are good enough. They're talented enough. They're deep enough. And they had huge expectations coming into the season. I don't think they'll let it slip away. I think plus 2.5 games was a lot to give them. So I played it that way. Clippers plus 2.5 games, minus 150. If it's worded differently on different sites. Let me just finish with this, Megan. And on some online sites, you'll find it worded as series go over 5.5 games. Basically, you're saying the same thing, right? You're saying 6 games either way. So if you see it as listed as over 5.5, I would play that as well. I think Clippers plus 2.5 minus 150 is a good bet.
Paul George still out with the knee injury. That's one concerning part to this Clippers team. All right, we've got to go over to the YouTube live chat because there are lots of NBA questions. Rob Veno, we're going to roll through them. Jeffrey with the first one. What NBA team today will have the biggest margin of points? Celtics versus Hawks. Celtics are laying 9.5 points. That game tips off at 3:30 Eastern today.
So he wants to know which team I feel will win by the most or the biggest
Yeah, who's
margin
going to
here
win by the
today.
biggest margin? And right
I
now, the
think it's the
Celtics are
Sixers.
laying the most points today.
Yeah, and I think it's the Sixers, Megan. It's a bad matchup for Brooklyn. Too small, not good enough defensively. Philadelphia played out the end of the season with a long-term picture in mind. Just go back a couple of weeks when they didn't play Joel Embiid against Nikola Jokic in what was viewed as a battle for the MVP. It's because they had the big picture in mind. So I'll go with Philadelphia here on that question.
Let's break it down even more. William says, how would you handicap Brooklyn versus Philadelphia? Reminder, Sixers laying 8.5 points, total at 214. I'd maybe eye the over here, but what are your thoughts? How would you handicap this one as a whole?
Well, a couple of things here. I'll start with one bet that I made on this was the series bet Philadelphia minus 2.5 games, minus 150. Thought Philadelphia either sweeps or goes 4-1. Again, it's a difficult matchup for the Nets, who are smallish. Nick Claxton's going to have his hands full with Embiid, obviously. And I talked about Philadelphia long picture. This series, Megan, is very reminiscent to a series these two played 3 years ago when, again, Brooklyn was too small. Spencer Dinwiddie actually was the point guard back then. He's since moved on and come back. And at that time, there was no James Harden on the 76ers, and the bench was not what the bench is now when you add pieces like Jalen McDaniels and DeAnthony Melton, who play very good defense. So I think the Sixers overall, much deeper, much better, much more determined. Joel and that group back then, a little immature. That maturity level has increased a ton. I think they're on a mission. I played them minus 2.5 games, minus 150. As for today, I would agree with you. I'm very surprised that the total's gone down to 213.5. Since Jacques Vaughn took over the team, and let's just go specifically to post All-Star break, there was a point, Megan, 15 games after All-Star break, where the Nets were top 5 in team tempo per game. Just he sped the team up. I think he realizes that at this point in time, even though they're great individual defenders, Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, it just hasn't clicked on the defensive side. So they try to outscore you. Philly's so efficient. I think they're number 3 in offensive efficiency, even though they play slow. 213.5 now looks like a fairly low number.
And now the playoffs are here, and there are tons of ways to get involved. If you want to bet on it from a series perspective, game by game, player props, all the fun stuff. And Rob Veno breaks it down great. We appreciate you joining us here Saturday, last call. Go check Rob Veno out on WagerTalk.com. He's been crushing it in MLB on a hot start, plus 14.1 units of profit, 69.2% win percentage. Thank you very much, Rob, for joining us here.
Always a pleasure, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll switch gears and talk a little MLB. We can continue the NBA conversations. Real quick, if you're listening, if you're watching, it would really help us out if you guys were to subscribe and like this channel. We want to keep doing videos. We want to keep the show going. So just very quickly, hit the subscribe button, like this channel. All right, next up, Adam Trigger joining us. Let's talk a little MLB. Adam, you've been doing great. Number 1 overall last year in units gained, win percentage, and ROI. How are you, and what do you have going on this week?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Megan. It's going well. Yeah, that's the last 365 days, so it's been a really strong calendar year since this point last year. Had a great baseball season last year, both Korean baseball and Major League Baseball. 5% are lost yesterday with the White Sox, but this morning in Eastern time zone, both of my Korean baseball plays won. I've got 2 MLB plays for Saturday. I'm going to give you one on the show here. The other goes a little bit later today, so that's already up on my page. And in a couple hours, once the lines are posted, I will have Korean baseball up as well, going for 5 straight winners there.
Adam, before we go into MLB, we talked about this before on this show. Korean baseball, what's your best advice if you're going to be betting on that league?
Best advice, and the guy behind me, Tokyo Brandon, will agree. He does the league as well. Just get as much information as you can and try to keep track of injuries, because the odds makers are not following that league like they are the bigger leagues. And if you can just stay on top of what guys are out and, just team news in general, you will easily beat that market. It's easier said than done. I don't speak Korean, Megan. Like, sometimes I have to translate websites. So there is some leg work involved. Really, you kind of got to watch the games. No one's reporting on a lot of this stuff. I'll just give you an example. NC Dinos over last night, their two hitter and starting second baseman got hit in the head with a ball. Right, hopefully he's okay, but I can just about guarantee he's not going to be in the lineup tomorrow. That's stuff that you have to take down because you're going to beat the market by knowing that type of
And you gotta do it at, like, 3 AM. That's the other thing. So you've
information.
gotta be on your phone, ready to
Hey,
go, but let
weekdays aren't bad for me. Like East
yeah.
Coast, 5:30 a.m. I love starting my day at that time. But like the weekends, 4 a.m. and then like tomorrow will be like 1 in the morning, so you kind of have to stay up late. Yeah, you lose some sleep, but it's worth it.
Hey, if you're on the East Coast, I guess it's a little bit easier. These West Coast people are gonna need to set some alarms. All right, let's talk MLB. We are full underswing, and you're looking at the Philadelphia Phillies at Cincinnati Reds. This is the third game for them. They've split wins. Phillies won yesterday or a couple days ago. We're looking at Philadelphia lane minus 116 on the money line. Total runs at 9.5. Where should we be looking here?
Yeah, so this is one of my two client plays for the day. I'm on the Reds. This got hit overnight. Some of that money was mine. I took the Reds minus by the time I actually posted it minus 105, which I think is totally fine. Even minus 110, minus 115 are more than playable here. We'll start off. The Phillies are a team I've wanted to sort of fade since the beginning of the season. I didn't think they'd ever live up to. So if you go back to last year, Megan, they were a wild card team. They got hot at the right time, and they rode that all the way to the World Series. So just off the top, I had a feeling that the Phillies were going to be overvalued coming into the season, and a team that I would want to fade. And that's been the case so far. Pretty lackluster start for them. So coming off of a win yesterday, I'm more than happy to sort of jump in and oppose them coming off of a win because I still don't think that overall, just at a high level, that they have it figured out. They're obviously dealing with some injuries that's sort of hampered them in the early going as well. As far as the Reds are concerned, this will be my first bet on the Reds this year. Didn't necessarily have this team circled as like a team that I wanted to back, but they have a pitcher today that I think is very good and I think gives us a good chance to cash this bet. That's going to be Graham Ashcraft. Really good stuff here. Um, 13 innings pitched so far this year, Megan. 13 strikeouts, back-to-back quality starts, and he's just. I think the Phillies are going to have a hard time with him potentially. Also, I found it interesting that the Phillies, their lineup isn't bad, but they're worse against right-handed pitching. They're going to strike out more against right-handed pitching, and Ashcraft's got some really good stuff as a right-handed pitcher. So I think that gives them a nice advantage over the Phillies, who are going to go with a guy that Matt Strahm has been outstanding. 10 innings so far this year, hasn't given up a run, but he's transitioning from a reliever to a starter. Even last game when he pitched against the Marlins, he handed me a loss, Megan. I was on the Marlins in that game, took a loss there. He faced zero adversity and still only went 5 innings. I'd be kind of surprised if he goes more than 5 today. Because you got to at least think that the Reds might be able to do something against him. And just because he's still in that transition phase, I can't really expect him to pitch overly deep into this game. If he doesn't pitch deep into this game, that's a problem. The Phillies bullpen ERA coming into today, 6.18, kind of a mess. I think that probably going forward that they'll be able to chisel away at that number. I don't think they're going to have a 6 ERA all season, but it's worth noting that right now the bullpen has been a big issue for the Phillies. So I think you actually have an advantage throughout the course of the game here for the Reds, because I think you have the better starter who's likely to pitch deeper. And while the Reds bullpen is not, they're not a top elite bullpen, I just think right now that they're in a better situation than the Phillies. I like the fact that the Phillies don't hit this type of pitching, this right-handed strikeout style pitching, as well as their sort of full season numbers suggest that they are offensively. And I do think the Reds can scrape a few runs here. So I agree with the market. This has moved from the Reds being an underdog to the Reds being the favorite. And I just like the idea of fading the Phillies off of a win. So I will go because they haven't been able to string wins together this year. So I'll go with the Reds here. I play this for my clients minus 105. I'd pretty much play this at any number. It's a 4% play for me. It goes at 4 p.m. Eastern, and I think the Reds have a really good chance.
Adam, we love when we get a free 4% play at last call. We're going to head over to the YouTube live chat. But before we do, I want to remind everyone of our new section here at last call. It's the best bet section. It's how we're going to wrap up every show from here on out. So your job is to go over to the YouTube live chat and give me your best bet. It can be an NBA, MLB, soccer, UFC. I don't care what it's in. Just go and give us a best bet and give us a reason too. We're not just going to hear, oh, I like the Lakers to win. I want you to tell me why, and then we'll read it at the end. All right, let's switch over, Adam. Flow Parlay Guru says Braves and MLB. The line just looks fishy. The Braves are minus 142 versus the Royals today. Do you agree that it's a little bit fishy out there?
I do. Do I want to come and bet against them right now? I'm not sure. Like, I definitely agree with the statement. Like, I don't know. I don't always subscribe to like a line being fishy per se, but I think what he means and the reason we use that term is maybe the books are okay with attracting some Braves money here. So I would agree with that. The Royals, they burned me a couple times early in the season. I would look to Royals plus 1.5 there. Maybe you catch the Braves. The Braves win 10-3 last night. They're on the road. There's a good chance that the Royals take one at some point in the series. Like, they're not totally incompetent. So I would say a very, very slight lean just based on a numbers perspective to Royals plus 1.5. At least you get the run. You get the run cushion there, and being as though they're the home team, Megan, you get a bit of a discount on the plus 1.5. So I would say Royals plus 1.5 if I was absolutely forced to get involved.
Adam, can the Twins win against the Yankees today? Can we get another one?
Well, they can. I don't necessarily like. So here's the thing with the Twins. They're in this series. There's some value on the Twins because it's made its rounds on social media, Megan, like it does every time these two teams play. The Yankees have absolutely owned them the past two, like literally like decade and a half. So the Yankees are typically overvalued when they play the Twins, especially at home. The problem here, though, for me is I have the Twins as an overall fade. I just think that I'm not in love with their lineup. I think after Correa and Buxton, the lineup is a little weak. They've been battling some injuries. They're 10-4, so I can only see like there's got to be some regression in the future for this team. So, man, I like Malley though. I like Tyler Malley. So like, this is a tough one. I think you know what? I'll call for some overall regression here and maybe say we get an under because I like Malley and I just don't think the Twins offense is going to do so. Like I had the over in this series on Thursday and I hit my bet in the first inning with the Twins scoring 9 runs. So there has to be a little bit of regression in my opinion, and I think I'd lean under it.
Adam, I have to do this because I'm a futures girl. I like to bet on futures. There's a lot of plus money there. Anything that you'd maybe lean towards? Maybe we're looking at MVP, Cy Young. Maybe we're looking at World Series. Give me something where I can get some value right now.
Megan, I didn't come prepared with this, but I will give out a futures play that I think is very, very bettable on this show. The reason I think it's bettable is because I bet it before the season, and now you can get better odds on it, and that would be the St. Louis Cardinals. I think you can bet them to win the National League, and I think you can bet them to win the World Series. And I would even look at the NL Central market at this point and see if there's a playable number there, meaning like something like in the plus range, because they were a favorite to win that division before the season. The Cardinals are going to turn it on at some point. They've started the season 6-8. They are 15th in the league right now, roughly middle of the pack in the league in runs scored. Yet they're top 5 in like every sort of notable offensive category. I just have to think that they're going to start scoring some runs soon. You look at this series against the Pirates, they got shut out by an atrocious pitcher the other day. Only scored 3 runs last night. The Cardinals are like, you have Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, back to back in that lineup. Very few teams have not only have 2 MVP candidates hitting back to back, and then the odds-on favorite to win NL Rookie of the Year, Jordan Walker. And Megan, I'll throw one more thing out there as to why I think that this is a great long-term bet. The Cardinals organization is loaded with talent. Not necessarily like I just named the stars, but they've got guys on that bench that would start on other teams. They have guys in AAA that would probably be in lineups right now. So they are absolutely the team come early July or mid July, All-Star break, what have you. Like if they need a starting pitcher, which looks like they do, that looks to be their issue right now, is starting pitching. They're going to be able to go out and get that person. I'm still a big believer in this Cardinals team, and you can actually get better numbers than I got betting them prior to the season. So I'll sign off, Megan, on any Cardinals future bets right now. I really, really like them going forward.
Adam, thank you for indulging me in a futures bet because that is my favorite. Adam, we appreciate you joining us here Saturday on Last Call. 4 Korean baseball wins in a row, number 1 overall last year in units gained, win percentage in ROI. We appreciate your time. Go cash some tickets Saturday, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Megan.
And before we bring on Tokyo Brandon, this is the last time I'm reminding you today of our new segment called Ask the Chat. It's very simple. You give out your best bet, you give a reason to your best bet, and we'll go through them at the end of the show. We'll give some thoughts. You can have debate with the friends in the chat. Ask the Chat. Head over, give your best bets. Let's bring in for the very first time on Last Call, Tokyo Brandon, our first time working together. Very excited to have you here on the show. Brandon's been fantastic, crushing it in the MLB so far. Number 1 baseball capper at WagerTalk the last 30 days. Number 1 all sports profit the last 30 days. Brandon lives in Japan. He used to be a Japanese professional scout for the league. You know better than anyone about this league. So start off by just telling us what you have going on at WagerTalk and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I used to be. Thanks for having me on, by the way. It's great to be on your show for the first time. Yeah, I did scout in Major League Baseball for 10 years. I scouted Japanese players for one of the Major League Baseball teams, and that knowledge comes in handy now as a capper. Right now at WagerTalk, I cap Korean baseball, I cap Japanese baseball, and Major League Baseball, and all of them quite successfully so far. I'm 12-3 in Korean baseball in the early season. Japanese, I think I'm 10-4 in Japanese right now, and Major League Baseball is going strong as well. Yesterday, I swept the board in Major League Baseball, went 4-0, and then in Korean Japanese combined today, I went 3-1. So that's a 7-1 run in the last 2 days, and I'm plus 91 units in the last 30 days. So things are going strong. Things are going well. I love baseball.
Things are going really well. And Brandon, we're gonna use your insight to hopefully get some free plays and free thoughts from you. And the first game we're gonna look at is the New York Mets at the Oakland A's. New York with a big win yesterday, 17-6. This is the second game of a 3-game series versus the A's.
Yeah.
The Mets have been favored on the money line 11 times this season. When that's happened, the Mets have gone 7-4 in those games. So how are we approaching this one out in Oakland?
Yeah, well, this line is minus 190 at the moment. It's pretty hard to bet that. And the A's are putting out Shintaro Fujinami, who I'm quite familiar with because he pitched in Japan for the Hanshin Tigers for many years. He went to high school at Osaka Toing High School, and I scouted him actually when I was a scout. He's one of those pitchers who has all the tools, but he can never put it together. And I'm quite surprised that a major league team invested in him and brought him over, because when things start to go wrong for him inside his head, just everything crashes and it goes downhill really fast. As you saw in his first 2 starts, he has a 2+ whip, and he started the first 3 innings of the first game quite well, and he started the first 4 innings of his second start quite well, and then just things unraveled and he just went downhill. So today he's facing Carlos Carrasco, and Carrasco's been terrible since he had his injury. He came back from his injury last year. He's been awful since. So we got 2 really bad starting pitchers going today. But when I was a major league scout, we have a saying that bad is more consistent than good. What that means is you can rely on a bad person to perform badly more than you can rely on a good person to perform well. A good pitcher will have a clunker here and there, but a bad pitcher will rarely pitch like a Cy Young winner. So bad is more consistent than good, and Shintaro Fujinami is bad. What's also bad is the Oakland A's bullpen. They have a combined FIP of 6.48. That's really bad. So two bad starting pitchers, but one team has the bullpen advantage, and I really like how the Mets finally got their lineup started last night. I said in a show yesterday, I expect the Mets to catch a fire soon, and they did last night. So nothing like catching a fire or your ailing lineup than playing the Oakland A's, which is pretty much a AAA farm team. So I
Hey,
like the Mets today as well. And if you bet baseball, that you don't like to take a run line with a home team, because if they're winning in the ninth inning, you don't get your ninth inning at bat. And the Mets are on the road, so it's ripe for a run line today.
Brandon, one of our tried and true fans here at Last Call Vegas, has a great question for you. He says, why are the totals in the Japanese league so low? Are the pitchers that good? Are the batters that bad? Also, what do they feed the Japanese pitchers? They make it look like 100 miles per hour. Yeah, that is a good point, though. Why are the totals so low?
The totals are very low in Japan. So the average game scores are around 6. Whereas in MLB, they're about 8.5 this season due to the rule changes and the increased scoring. Japanese pitchers are really good, and I think it has to do with the fact that I mean, I think it's okay to say, but Asians generally have smaller bodies, which means they have less power. So they're not going to crank it over the fence like a Judge or a Acuna. They play a lot of small ball, and you can tell that by a lot of the Japanese players that came to Major League. Ichiro came over, and all the Japanese players idolize Ichiro. They want to be slap hitters, and they want to hit for a 400 average. They're not home run hitters over here. But the pitchers are great. The pitchers are really good. And if you watched the WBC, you saw Roki Sasaki. He was awesome. You saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He was awesome as well. So yeah, Japanese have a lot of good pitchers, and they have a lot of small ball slap hitters. So that is pretty much why you have the low scores. And they eat a lot of Wagyu as well.
I wish I could eat as much Wagyu. All right, I'm Tokyo Brandon. Here breaking down MLB, Japanese baseball. We asked Adam this, and
Yeah.
you live out in Tokyo. So what is
I
the
do.
key to being successful betting in the Japanese leagues?
Betting in the Japanese league, you have to, it's a different game. And you have to take some rule changes and some strategic changes into consideration. So I like how the person who put that question out, they noticed that Japanese scores are low. And it also has to do with strategy. If you watched the WBC, you noticed that the Japanese team was bunting a lot, and they like to run produce. They like to take a lead because winning by 1 run or taking a 1-run lead is really important when you play ball in Japan. So Japanese teams will bunt a lot. They'll steal a lot. They'll do squeezes. They do all kinds of stuff except hit the ball over the fence. But Yoshida for the Boston Red Sox, he can hit it over the fence. And Murakami, who plays for the Tokyo Yakult Swallows, he hit 56 home runs last year. So they do have some power hitters, but generally I think when you bet Japanese baseball, you have to take into consideration the strategy. They play small ball, and you also have to take into consideration that Japanese games can end in a tie. They play 12 innings and end in a tie. So these are some things you keep in mind when you're betting Japanese baseball. Run lines are very dangerous in Japanese baseball because the scores are so low and because you can end in a tie, which will both kill your bet. So just things like that you have to consider.
Yeah, it's a different game at the end of the day. We are going to switch back to
Little bit.
MLB. Neil M in the comments asking, hi, Brandon. Speaking of the Mets versus A's, do you like Mets over 5.5 runs at -110? The game total or the game runs is at 9, but the Mets at 5.5.
Yes, I do. I haven't put this out to my clients, but now that you bring this up, I do like it because if you look at Fujinami, he's given up a lot of runs in his first 2 starts, and the A's bullpen is just awful. On top of that, the Mets get a guaranteed 9 innings of at-bats because they're on the road. So, yeah, I think the Mets might be able to reach this game total of 9 by themselves. So, yes, I do like that. I do like that run total. Actually, I like the A's to go over as well. I think I do. I have the Mets on the run line in this game, but I think the first 5 innings is just going to be a run fest. I think we're going to get at least 10 runs in the first 5 innings. So yeah, I like both team totals in this game.
So then I'm guessing we should take over 9 runs as the game total, right?
I think that would be a good play, but my money's on the Mets to
All
win
right.
it by 1.5. But yeah, I would like any of those plays as well. Not quite for like a 3 or a 4% play, but maybe for a smaller 2% play. A couple shekels on the team totals over and the game total over as well.
Well, Neil's on to something then. Brandon, I'm
He
so
certainly is.
appreciative of you joining here uh, with us at Last Call for the very first time. Great to pick your brain on all things MLB, everything going on in the Japanese leagues. You've been fantastic this season on MLB. Number 1 baseball capper at Wager Talk the last 30 days. Number 1 all sports profit the last 30 days. You can find Brandon at wagertalk.com. We hope to have you back here on Saturday. Go cash some tickets this weekend, and thank you very much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Megan.
It's now time for our new segment here at Last Call called Ask the Chat. And my producer, Ranieri's telling me we've got some good questions coming in. We've got some good best bets. So let's be the judge of that. Coming in first from Chad Moody BTO. Best bet again tomorrow. John Morant over 1.5 threes for today. Mikal Bridges under 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I like that. Morant needs to chill it, but I like that play. All right, next up, LA Mackin, I think I'm saying that right. Masson, tell me if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. KC F5 plus or plus. I'm sorry. First 5 over a half. Okay. I'd probably say that's. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that? Not agree with that? That's a little bit tricky. Next one coming in from Vegas, our tried and true. Going with the Kings today. They've got the momentum, and the Warriors still trying to endpoint Wiggins into the lineup. They'll take a game or two. I grabbed that. I like the Kings here. They might not win the series, but they've been on a great story run this season. Ghosted, my best bet today is Braves money line. Not getting too complicated with it. Bats are clicking. Elder has had a good start to this year. I don't know why it cut off, but I'll take Braves as well. They've been kicking it off. Porter, Brewers money line at plus 130. A great public fade. The Padres are hitting .197 against righties as of late. And Peralta has good stuff, and their bats are, you know what? We're going to figure this out next time so we don't cut off the rest of the words. All right, Mel, best bet Bruins to win a game 1 in the series at minus 120. All right, those are our Ask the Chat segment best bets. Lots going on in the world of sports. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs coming up, full MLB swing, Japanese baseball, whole 9 yards. And we're here to break it down every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern here at Wager Talk TV at Last Call. Reminder, join us, subscribe, like the channel. We'll be back here on Thursday. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you for joining us.